We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
That's right, folks. This just in. You guys might have seen me wearing shirts like this in more of my videos, or seen a lot more posts with stickers and things like that with this logo on there. Well, that's because as of recent, I have finally built a website. Yes, I've built a website where you guys can get the same stuff. You can get the stickers, you can get the shirts. I'm still reordering shirts. I'll have more in stock soon, but you can head over to squareonespeedshop.com and you can now get things like this or like this. One of the most popular things right now are these new grenade stickers. You can slap that on whatever you want. It could be your buddy's rig that hasn't seen an oil change since the last ice age and you know is ready to blow at any time. So head over to squareonespeedshop.com. I'm going to constantly update the website. I have more design ideas coming. I'm going to make more t-shirts. Hats will be available. I'll have leather patches and things like that. You can put on whatever you want, but you can head over there and get all that stuff for yourself. The site is live and it's ready to go. Thanks for everyone who kept requesting it. I finally did it. Now, back to your regularly scheduled program. All right, what's going on, my people? I'm back after about a week off, just visiting an old friend, came all the way down to visit me, so took a week to ourselves. We're back in the Garage Mahal with a little bit more progress. We're making some more progress on the OG war rig. I got a few things I got to do, and today we're working on the carbs. So today is an informative and hopefully interesting video for all you guys. I'm going to go through carburetors. I actually have the carburetor I'm going to be using on war rig, and then I have the carburetor off of Randy Savage, so I can actually show you guys the differences as I tear both of these down, because this one needs a rebuild anyway. It's been sitting as is for about 4, almost 5 years now, so it really needs to be rebuilt. You can feel it now as you're riding it. It's got some bogs. So we're gonna go through and replace all the gaskets anyway, and I have all that stuff sitting here. So we're gonna dive into these, break this one all the way down so I can go ahead and package it up along with the cylinder head, put it all together in the same box and send it up to my man Jeff up there at OCP so he can get going on this thing. Another thing that just came in, got my JE piston. Now these things, I gotta tell you, are a work of art. These JE pistons are absolutely beautiful. I went with the 12.8-to-1 compression Pro piston. There's a lot less material down here around the skirts, a lot less over here. You guys can see these things are machined all the way out, but they're extremely light and there's a lot less resistance with how they set the rings and everything. I don't know, it's just a really good piston. I'm actually running almost the identical thing in Randy Savage back there. And it's a really potent combo with the webcam. I don't know if it's the piston or whatever, but they're extremely light, they rev really fast, they're durable. It's just a reliable setup and it makes plenty of power. I'm excited to get this thing packaged up with the crank and send that thing out to Crankworks to get balanced and polished and all that stuff. So with that, let's get into breaking apart these carburetors, and I can show you guys the differences, some of the nuances, and some of the things you guys are asking me questions about as far as tuning these things that hopefully I can answer in this video. Okay, so what am I talking about with differences? Well, first off, what do we have? We have Keihin FCR 41mm carburetor. These came on the 2006 and up TRX 450s. The 04 and 05 I think was a 39mm Keihin, but it wasn't an FCR. It was a completely different design carburetor. It wasn't very good. You had to use like really rich jets in it. It was just a very, very different carb, and it didn't deliver fuel quite as well as this did. And these are very tunable. You'll also find these FCRs on all your CRF dirt bikes that were carb models and things like that. But these already came 41mm, and the difference between this one and this one that I'm already using, and you might be able to see the physical difference. Look at the bore of this one. This is actually a 42.5mm FCR carb. So it started life just like this one, but then sending it to Jeff goes ahead and does a 42.5mm taper bore on this, and you might be able to see the difference a little bit better up here at the beginning of the Venturi. So you can see how much material is removed from this one to that one. And all that really does is offer better flow, especially when you have a high flowing head and everything. This you pair with that and it works a lot better. You get a lot more out of it. So that's what I'm going to be doing to this one. Something that you'll find a little bit different between some of these FCR carburetors is, I believe, on the Kickstart models. I don't know if it was a factory option or when you got a Kickstart model, they would give you a hot start. Now up here it's just a hole, it's not tapped or anything, it's just a hole, but I think you can tap it and put a hot start in. But that's how the kickstart models would come if you asked for a hot start with your carburetor. This is just your choke right here, but there would be a hot start up here that would run all the way up to the lever on your bars, and you would pull that as your hot start lever. But as far as FCR carburetors go on these TRXs, I think pretty much everything else is identical from the 06 up. Everything was the same. Now what I have to do, I just have to go through this one, rebuild it with all new gaskets, and I have all that stuff right here. I've got the Moose kits. I think All Balls is now all Moose. I don't think you can find you might be able to find the All Balls kits, but I don't know, Moose Racing is making all the other stuff. But there's one thing that really...
You know what really grinds my gears?
When you buy a carb rebuild kit, it doesn't give you the mid-body gaskets and everything. You just get everything to rebuild the float bowl, put the new slide gaskets in. Yes, there's little O-ring slide gaskets that go in. It gives you just about everything except the mid-body gaskets. You have to buy a separate $30 mid-body gasket kit and you get less in it. Why? Why can't we just put everything in the same kit instead of me buying 2 different kits and spending $60 just to rebuild the carburetor? Tell me. Anyway, but that's what we've got. So let's tear into this thing. Now this would be officially the 3rd board FCR I've had done by Jeff. In fact, this one is still a all stock FCR carb that came off of that rig back there, the wife's rig. So funny story about this one is I yanked it off when I was prepping her quad. Yep, I put hers together with my suspension and everything for the first Vegas to Reno race that we ever did. So I put my ported head and board carb on hers and different cam and everything, and that turned into, let's just leave it on there so that now she has all that cool stuff going on. So I just left everything on hers, and I took this carb and I'm going to rebuild this one for War Rig. So that's where we're at. She's got all the goods on hers now. I'll take the old stuff, we'll rebuild it. It'll be sweet anyway. So all I'm doing now is pulling the float bowl off this thing, getting into the bottom half of this carburetor, and then taking all of the other pieces out so that I can get to the mid body. Oh, looks like the O-ring and the little washer stayed behind. I'm gonna have to pick that out of there. All right, there's our float bowl. You guys can see it looks a little greenish in there. That's what fuel does to your carburetor these days. That's why gaskets go bad so fast. Now I have to get this little rod out of the way so that we can pull our float. This one side is knurled, so that should be the side that you tap it back in from, and the other side is smooth. So sometimes you can try smacking it backwards and you end up just knurling the other side. All right, let's take our float and needle out. Everything actually doesn't look too bad, it's just been in there forever. So the rubber ends up getting hard and going bad. This one doesn't feel terrible. I might have gone in and replaced this at one point. Now, while I have this thing pulled apart right here, I've already had the side cover off. This is your accelerator pump arm, all right? This is the rod that comes down from the arm. I'll take that out of there once I get the mid body and everything apart. But when I talk about tuning your carburetor, a lot of people ask, why do I have a bog? Or they just get a carburetor back, they've changed jets, they've done a bunch of work, whatever it is, and they can't seem to get the jetting right. Actually, a lot of the times, that bog comes from your accelerator pump right here. Just adjusting that screw in to adjust when this little nozzle down here, that little jet, there's a burst of fuel that comes out of there. As soon as you hit the throttle, it shoots out of there at a certain time. And you want that jet to clear the door as soon as the door moves. So as soon as your slide is up, as soon as this moves, you want that jet of fuel going in there. A lot of guys will have it lagging, so you'll have this thing halfway open and it hasn't added any fuel with that jet yet. So you got to keep turning that D screw in until you get the jet just right so that it's not hitting the slide before it opens. It's just clearing the slide. As soon as it moves, that jet's shooting underneath there through the Venturi and into your head, and then you get that instant acceleration feel, or you get that nice throttle response with it right there. So a lot of the time, it's that little guy right there, that little culprit. A lot of people talk about, oh, I got to get the quick shot, I got to add more fuel, or blah, 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 add different jets. Really, it comes down to that. Your jetting doesn't have to change much. I find that this little guy right here helps tremendously when it comes to tuning the carb. So if you guys are having trouble, try playing with that thing first. When you have all your plastics off and everything, put this on there, get that jetting just right, and then try it. Now, as for getting the carburetor off there, it can be kind of a pain sometimes. All right, let's get the main jet out. It's just a little 6mm. And then the emulsion tube that this sits in is actually an 8mm, and you can yank that out as well. That's the tube that the needle actually rides in all the way through to the top here. What size did we have in there? 162. Actually, I think a 162 was part of the HRC kits when you used to be able to pick those up. An HRC kit was jets, a needle, and a cam. So I think you got the HRC cam, some different jetting, and a needle that came with it, and that would be like an instant power adder. But you can't seem to find those anywhere, or people are hanging on to them. They're extremely expensive now. There it is. There's the entire tube that your main jet sits in, and then the needle comes in from the other side. This controls most of your fueling past quarter throttle. Now, there's plenty of you guys that probably know more about these carbs than I do, but that's why I talk to people that do. Go ahead and let me know in the comments. Anything I'm missing, it's fine. Go ahead and put it down there. I'd rather learn from anybody who knows more than me. But please, be gentle. Your pilot jet should be the one that handles all your idling up to quarter throttle. So from idle up to quarter throttle should all be pilot jet. Now, the other thing, make sure when you guys are getting pilot jets for these, I actually get a lot of jets from Jets R Us. I think he's all the way out in Florida, but he has every size I can think of in inventory, and I always get jets from him because they're genuine Keihin jets. But when you get these, make sure you get the 21 series jets for the FCR, because there are slight differences in jetting. And actually, I'll go grab one just to show you guys. They look almost the same, but there's a difference in thread size and depth and all that stuff. So hang on. Now you guys can see the difference. They look very similar, but over here's the one we're using, and over here is a 22 series pilot jet. They're almost the exact same size, but you can see the thread is different. They're in a different place, different shoulder. And I'm not sure what the 22 series went on, but I'm guessing between the dirt bikes and the quads and different size engines, they had different pilot jets for different things, or they were just changing them throughout generations. I'm really not sure, but make sure you get the 21 series if you're working on these FCRs, because that's what goes in there. Moving on. All right, so from what I can gather, this is your starter jet. So when you go to kick the thing over or start it, this is what's giving you that initial jet of fuel to get this thing going. This is a 75, and I really never touch this. In fact, I hardly even touch the pilots. I leave these at 42, which is what comes stock. Maybe bump it up to 45 if I need to, but that's really rich. I've been able to leave it at 42 and just open up the fuel screw just a hair more, and everything works fine. I'm usually only 1.5 to 2 turns out. So these I try to leave alone as much as I can. If I need a little bit more on starting, I'll add it right here. But you don't have to go crazy with those. I see a lot of guys putting 48 pilot jets in and things like that when they have stock bore and maybe a cam. You really don't need to go crazy with that. It's not until you really get into like big bores and stuff you can think about it. And then all the way down in the bottom there, you have your leak jet. I have to go get a different little screwdriver because it is tiny and I do not want to tear up the lip on that. But the leak jet, that you can mess with a little bit to help your accelerator pump, but this just sits down in the bottom of your bowl. But you can see right here, there's a direct line right into your accelerator pump bowl right here, which is where the diaphragm sits for your accelerator pump. And that little arm right there comes down, and that's what works the diaphragm. This is actually a mountain bike tool. You can see it says park tool on there, but that little flathead is the perfect size for this leak jet. It just fits down inside the slot, and it doesn't tear it up when you take it out. Now these leak jets are interesting because the smaller the number on the leak jet, from what I understand, means a larger and longer duration squirt from your accelerator pump. Please don't keep quoting me on the word squirt. All right, and there it is. This little guy right here. So if you put a smaller leak jet in, or smaller number on there, this one is so this one is a 55. So if you go down to a 52, you'll get more fuel for longer in your accelerator pump as soon as you hit the throttle. So you should get more fuel through that nozzle. And we'll just go ahead and pull this gasket because I know that's going to need replacing later anyway. You can already feel it's hard and oh. When it goes from nice spongy rubber to feeling like a car tire, it's probably time to take that out. Oh yeah. See, it's been squished and flattened on one side. It's breaking apart as I'm pulling it. But that's junk. Before I start really messing around in the mid-body, I'm gonna go ahead and take this cap off the top. And what's underneath here is access to your needle. All right, pull the cap of your FCR flat slide carburetor. I like how they label everything like that. Okay, and then you guys can see down in here, that little 8 mil right there is basically your hold down. There's a spring underneath and a washer that holds your needle in place. There we go. That's how it looks when you pull it out. If you're missing that little piece, just look down there. It's usually sitting right on top of your needle where that little circlip sits on there. If you're ever trying to change this while it's still sitting on the quad, it can be a pain in the butt to get this needle out. Now there's a lot of different ways you can tune your carburetor with just the needle. A very popular one is the NCVQ. Now this is a stock jet. I don't see any markings on this one. This has been in there since its inception basically, but it does have all the little notches so you can move the needle up and down in its position. So it gives you either more fuel or less fuel, and then it's all based on taper and things like that. But I have all the other needles sitting right here. So I actually have one more type of needle sitting in the drawer, but I'll just show you. Here's the stock one. This is an NCQR, and this one is, or an NCYQ, that's what that one is. An NCVQ. So the difference between all these is basically the taper, where it begins, how much it tapers down here at the end, how long the taper goes, how thick the needle is. It's just a bunch of little tuning pieces so it delivers fuel differently as you run the slide up and down with the throttle. There's a lot to it. You would have to read into it. There's some breakdowns on the internet you guys can find. It'll tell you what all the different tapers are and how long they are. That's a whole nother book on itself. Anyways, that's what was in it. We're not going to use that. That'll basically get put into a drawer until maybe I need it. And then I don't want to use this one because this is what you usually get in your carb rebuild kits. These will just come in there as an extra needle, and I don't know if it's from the dirt bike carbs or what, but it's a slightly different needle than what comes stock in these. This is the one we like, NCVQ. That's the code on there, and all the code is it's just telling you the design of the needle. Blah. It's like word vomit. There we go. There's our slide, the FCR flat slide. And then right here, you guys might be able to see it. There's actually O-rings that sit right there. Oh no, I dropped a wheel. I'll get it. I like to go through every once in a while and completely break everything down so I can clean these up, because these will get gunked up after a long time sitting in there. Almost like carbon buildup. You can see it coming off on my fingers. They get pretty dingy. Now we're going to pull out the arm. Careful, because it is under spring tension. You can see the spring right there. So pull that all out. Now you can actually get different springs here and for your throttle so that you get different spring pressures, and it's either a lighter or heavier throttle. Stock, these things are very heavy. There's dual springs, so you have a spring in the throttle housing and you have it down here in the carb. You can get modified springs down here to make it a lighter throttle pull. And then we'll yank our little arm out of there. You cannot get that out until you pull that rod out. As you can see, it rides straight through there. Careful removing that little C-clip from right here. That sucker wants to just fly. And you don't want to lose that. All right, the next thing I got to do is separate this mid-body right here from this upper portion right here in the Venturi and everything, because you see there's that little nozzle in there for your accelerator pump. I'm basically just pulling this apart. So one, I know how to put everything back together. And two, makes it easier when I ship it to him. All he's got to worry about is boring the thing and sending it back. I'll do all the rebuild. Okay, I got it in there. It's a 2mm, or 2.5, sorry, 2.5mm Allen that goes in there. God, that's tight.
That's what she said.
Definitely make sure that all that gunk is out of there, otherwise you're not going to be able to get it in. And this one's a little odd because it's got this funny angle you got to come at it with this in the way. I tell you. Oh. Did I mention it was hot, by the way?
La la Luke.
It was tight, that's for sure. Look at that. Little gasket is stuck in there. It's been in there for so long. Oh my gosh. Look at that, coming out in pieces. It's definitely time to go through this thing anyway. Needs a full cleaning. I mean, it looks like there's dirt and gunk in there even. All right, mid-body is out. Now, I can leave this together. I don't really need to pull this halo off there. That can stay. This is all going to get augered out by Jeff. And there you have it. Voila. That is an entire FCR carburetor broken all the way down. We've got your mid-body right here with your little halo. You've got the top of it right here. This is basically part of the mid-body as well, but this is your Venturi and everything. This is what's going to get bored out along with this halo piece. Everything else is laid out here. You've got your fuel inlet, you've got your jets and emulsion tube, your bowl, float, all this stuff just splayed out nicely. I can go through and start replacing gaskets on other things while this is gone. What you guys didn't see was inside the accelerator pump, I just had the cap off, but I had a whole new accelerator pump rebuild straight from Honda. Here's that little diaphragm I was talking about that sits in there, and that's what that little arm pushes on. I even get a new rod for the accelerator pump, so all that's laying right there. Everything broken down, ready to go. Makes it much easier for Jeff when he goes ahead and bores that. He can send it back to me, and I can reassemble all of this. Fairly simple, straightforward video. I hope you guys got something out of it, maybe a little bit of education. Either way, it's fun to pull these things apart. This is a great way to get started when you guys are building something. Just tear down the carb and put it back together. It's like a puzzle. You can go piece by piece. You can start at the bottom and do that multiple times. It doesn't matter. But once you get it all apart, you can lay it out nicely like this. You don't need a whole lot of space. And it's nice to know once you go back through it, it's all fresh, sealed back up, nice and clean. I'll put everything else in the sonic cleaner, and it's gonna be an excellent carb when it's all done. We'll slap that back on. That bad boy, once the engine is done, we'll have a good running machine. So hopefully you got something out of it. Now I'm gonna get out of here because I am burning up. So I'll see you next time.